What's going on, irregulars? Welcome back to another Thursday. It's your girl, Kaity, week 3, your new co-host.
How you doing?
You know, Bobby, I'm here.
You're here.
Mm-hmm.
In one piece.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes one of us.
What do you think so far of the duo?
Oh, the duo. I think you're doing pretty good. I
Thank
have
you.
to say so. I have to say that. You know,
Thanks.
you're doing pretty good. How about you? How you feeling?
You know, I'm here. I was out a little late last night. we pushed the time to record back a few times today.
A
but-
few times. A few hours. Okay. So we were supposed to meet at 11, and we are now starting this episode. It is 2:00.
But you know what? I always say, if people ask me to be somewhere, if they don't give me an hour heads up, like if you want me to be somewhere at 12, tell me to be there at 11. Like, and if you know me well enough at this point in our friendship, you should know that. And if you don't, it's on you.
And you know what's funny is even last night I was like, hey, when you want to record? And you were like, how about noon? And I was like, how about we just say 11? So then we make it for noon. And here we are at 2:00.
But when you said that, I did my little like clapping, like, yay, he's learning.
Yeah, he's learning. Thank God. And then, of course, it didn't work out.
Oh, well, here we are. Bobby, how are your New Year's resolutions going?
They're going good. They're going good, I guess, because my one was to hit on every girl on the planet. And I actually slid in the DMs with some chick and, just hit it off. We were shooting the shit, dropped a couple good lines. And then before I knew it, got her number and we've been chatting a little bit, which kind of leads into what a lot of people have reached out to me about. A lot of, Caitlin and I's mutual friends.
There he goes.
There it is that everyone's like, Bobby, why do you call Caitlin Caitlin? And I'm like,
Which it is my full name. Let me preface it with that. I only usually hear Caitlin from doctors and coworkers who just read my email and don't actually know me personally. Everybody else calls me Kaity or Kate.
yeah. So I was like, well, we kind of just figured this out here because the girl who I slid in the DMs with, her name is also Kate. And I'm like, this is going to get confusing pretty quick. They do spell it differently, though.
Well, mine is very unique. Shout out to my parents, guys.
Right. Shout out to mom and dad. But I'm like, all right, well, this is going to get confusing. So, and like now we're on like a professional level. So I was like, I feel like Caitlin just works a little bit better. And then what was it last night? I kind of
we came up with an interesting realization. So I actually went on a date this past weekend with a man named Bobby.
So now I will be going on a date this week with a girl named Kate. She has already went on a date with a guy named Bobby. So we are essentially dating each other through 2 other people.
Without actually dating each other. It's been very confusing for us. It's been very confusing for our mutual friends.
Yeah.
So we're probably just going to go with like Robert and Caitlin from now on.
Robert. I'd rather anything than Robert.
All right.
Personally.
We're now taking suggestions for Bobby's new name because,
Because here we are.
if I go on date number 2, it's going to get even more confusing.
Yeah,
So.
I got to make it to date 1. So I guess maybe we'll figure this out. And once we get to date 1, we'll have to reconvene, draw up a new strategy and see what's going to go on. But I'm actually, it leads me into this topic here where I'm very, very surprised you actually went on a date. That is extremely unlike you.
I did not follow through with bail plans.
Yeah, no bail plans. 2021, that should be your resolution, to commit to non-bail plans.
Well, and especially in the sense of dating, I think is what you're kind of getting at here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So this was my 4th first date in my whole life. And I am 29 years old and I have only gone maybe even 4th just like date in general, actually.
I don't understand that though, because like to me, like even if you meet up with like mutual friends and kind of just like go out for like a bunch of drinks as like a group, like I consider that a date.
I don't. I think to me a date is going out to dinner or drinks with a member of the opposite or the same sex, whichever you're into, and sharing the time together, just the 2 of you getting to know each other.
I mean, I agree. I definitely agree. But I just think like there is a piece where it's like if it happens to be someone that you are mutually friends with, like in a group of friends, like you can, I don't know. I feel like you can.
consider that a date. No.
I don't know. I feel like
Maybe that's why I'm so scared of them. So I don't know why, but I think it's had to have been forever, I guess, obviously. I just have never really dated. Like, it's just always been super scary to me. I tend to gravitate towards people who are my friends first, or I have gotten to know in another scenario in some kind of way. I have never really done the whole, like, especially with app dating and stuff like that. It scares the shit out of me. I don't know why. It just freaks me the fuck out, and I bail almost every time.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's weird because like that is exactly the opposite of what I like my New Year's resolution is, because I was the same way, like where like people would be like, oh, go talk to that chick, like, you know, you think she's hot, or at the bar or whatever, go talk to her.
That? I kill it at that. I will walk up to any stranger at the bar anytime, any place, and tell a really corny joke or like make a comment about the way that they're sitting. You know, I can approach anyone, but the idea of meeting someone at a public place and sitting across from them, and like, this is just like what my head does. I'm like, okay, well, am I gonna drive? Is he gonna drive? Where should I park? What if I park too far away? Should I bring my coat in? Should I bring a purse? Like, do I order a vodka soda? Do I order a martini? Like, how many drinks is too many?
Like a normal person.
My brain just freaks out, and I just self-sabotage. And then I used to cancel the day of, which, I mean, I low-key did like 2 weeks ago, but normally now I just don't even bother pretending that I'm going to go on the date, and I just delete Hinge, and now I'm single as fuck, and here I am.
So like, how did this man win you over to go, like actually get you to go?
Oh my gosh, this is so funny. This is like, this is me in a nutshell. So this is the same dude I bailed on before. Nice. He got COVID, and the universe sent me like a bone and was like, here, you don't have to see him for 2 weeks. You can just chat with him in the meantime. And it's been great. I could actually like get to know him first and then go out. But that's, you know, whatever. I went on a date, and I'm really proud of myself for that. That's a big deal for me, which sounds so fucking lame, but it's true.
Why is it a big deal though? Like, I get like from your previous history of like not going on first dates, which I still can't comprehend, like the fact that you're 29.
No one believes me when I say that. Like, I think guys think that that's like my line to be like, oh, this is my first date. Like, no, it actually really, like
to be cute or whatever.
No,
yeah,
like this is so embarrassing. I don't fucking know how to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I crush it at first dates. That's one thing. Like once I'm there, I feel like I'm good. I mean, probably.
I think I'm pretty good now. I mean, I've had.
I guess I'm not that good if I'm still single, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's a good point.
Fuck.
Why are we giving advice about this?
I have no idea. But what do you think, like, that all of that really like stems from?
I think a little bit of my anxiety for sure. And you know,
Are you saying a little bit of it stems from anxiety, or that you only have a little anxiety?
Oh, no. I have got quite a bit of anxiety. Okay. I think a little bit of it stems from the anxiety.
Just to clear the air on that.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually an interesting thing that you bring up, and I think something that we'd like to discuss pretty in depth today is as I mentioned in my first episode, I suffer from ADHD, which I think affects my life in a lot of ways that I never really fully comprehended until my adult life at this point. And it's been challenging and a little bit uncomfortable, I think.
Okay. So explain that.
So personally, and maybe this is an insecurity thing, I really don't know. I think when I mention I have ADHD or I have ADD, I think first of all, when I say that, most people that know me are like, okay, duh.
Well, like we had talked about this before, like, you know, before we even decided to really like make it something on the episode. But I feel like, I think that everybody to a degree, like same with like OCD. I feel like everyone to a degree has some sort of OCD. They don't like a certain, you know, some things a certain way, like whether it's like the volume or how they wash their hands or something. You know, I feel like everyone to some degree has form of ADD or ADHD, which we're going to dive into the difference between those two. But and I think because everyone has like a smidge of it, and it's also like more of like a prominent thing nowadays within kids and young adults and whatnot, that it almost like gets downplayed.
Absolutely.
You know, like, oh, you have ADHD. You're like, oh, okay, cool. So does everyone. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, yeah, just because everybody has it doesn't mean that it doesn't like really fucking affect me. You know what I mean?
I think some people, my perception of it, and maybe it's because of the way that I grew up, a lot of people don't think that it's a real deficit disorder. People think that it's just the crazy kid in class that can't sit still, and we're making an excuse to make him feel better. That's kind of how even now that I have it and I've been diagnosed and I'm on medication for it, I still feel that way about it.
Yeah, because I think and I'm going to say it, don't really care. I mean, it's my fucking podcast or our podcast, so I don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
It's our podcast, and don't you fucking forget it.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, with the boomer generation, you know what I mean? They don't understand, and it's not their fault that they don't understand, because think about this, I believe the statistic is scientists and stuff like that only know about 10% of what our brain is actually capable of. Mm-hmm. So imagine, 50 years ago, think about how much advancement there was in technology and medicine and science and all that stuff, in the last 20 years. Okay. So imagine 60 years ago, how much has changed from then. They just fucking didn't know. It's not their fault. They just didn't have the technology to know and understand,
and I think my family is my father especially is very black and white. He's very much like, you have a problem, you find a solution, and you do it. And that's how you get through things, which in a lot of ways is true. But
so he's probably the type of guy, if you were a cigarette smoker, he's like, okay, you have a problem. You smoke cigarettes, you quit cold turkey.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
My dad quit cold turkey for my mom, by the way.
That's great.
Yeah. First date, smoked a cigarette. My mom's like, you smoke? He's like, yep. She goes, I'll never go on a date with you again. He threw it back in the trash, hasn't smoked a cigarette since.
Okay, I know we're on a tangent here, but I just need to say Bobby's parents are the fucking shit. They rock. They are so cute. Their interactions are amazing. I'm in love with them. They're awesome. Shout out to the Ashtons.
Yeah,
they rock.
As Mike O'Malley would say, Lord and Lady Ashton.
And they deserve that title so fucking much. Let me just say that right now. Hell yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
So I grew up in a household, with mainly driven by my father in the idea that ADD, ADHD are not real. They have outright said that many times. So I think I just didn't, and it wasn't like I felt like I was hiding something growing up. I had no idea. I just lived my life, and, I would forget things all the time. I remember one time I played soccer when I was little, and one time I lost my soccer ball, which is it's a soccer ball. It's big. It's round. Where can you put a soccer ball that you lose it? I grew up in a row home, a very small row home. Where the fuck was it?
Yeah.
And I remember him looking at me like, how the fuck do you lose a soccer ball? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. So he used to say this thing to me a lot, and I can remember it in the same tone, and he would look at me in the face and be aware of the world around you. And that was kind of his way of saying, stop fucking losing everything all the time, you fucking idiot. And yes. I'm like, God damn it, I did it again.
Here we are.
And that has carried over pretty much throughout my whole life. You can attest to this. I lose my cell phone
on a regular basis
in my own home. It's in front of me right now, but normally I almost never know where my phone is. I lose my keys all the time. I've lost 12 wallets.
Which I'm going to say too for, and whatever, here, I'm going to say it, for a young lady to lose her phone in 2021, that's a thing. They're usually attached to their phones. Actually, I'll rephrase, for a millennial to lose their phone, and I don't care if you're a boy, girl, or consider yourself whatever you want to identify as, for a millennial to lose their phone in 2021 would be the end of the world for most people.
And it's not even losing it, I've lost it forever, I left it somewhere. It's misplacing it within my own home 14 seconds ago. I will search my home for my phone just because I can't remember where I set it down. And it will be in the dumbest fucking place.
The bathroom. You're like, what?
Literally, this happens to me all the time. And now that I live alone, I've actually started to try and get a little bit better about it because I don't have someone around to call it. So if I lose it, I have straight up lost my phone for hours in my own home because I don't have anyone to call it. I'm like,
Is that embarrassing?
I've had to go to my parents' house and be like, I need to borrow someone's cell phone because I need to bring it back to my house and call myself until I find my own phone.
Okay, that's embarrassing.
And it'll be tucked on a shelf or somewhere so weird. But that's the way my brain works. So kind of to bring it back, that's just behaviors that I've had my whole life. And I didn't really think anything of it. I'm just whatever, I'm flighty.
So when did you I feel like you've realized that you were this way for a long time, but when did you realize that you needed to do something about it to make life a little bit easier on you?
So throughout college, I think college is kind of a unique experience, right? Because you're not sitting in a classroom for I don't know what, 8 hours a day, and you're not stuck there. You don't have to ask to go to the bathroom. Like, you have short blocks of classes. And my major was communications and journalism. So a lot of my classes were really hands-on. We had a lot of projects. There was a lot of talking. It was a lot of interviewing. It wasn't a lot of sit down, read this book.
Here's a PowerPoint slide.
Right. Right. So college, I was able to get through. And, you know, like, you're in college, there's a little bit of self-medicating here and there. So I was able to get through that. But when I got my first job right out of college, I remember knowing, and I was transitioning from bartending, which was tough.
Is perfect for someone with ADD or really ADHD, which really again, we'll have to dissect the difference between those two. But that is a perfect job because if you work at a busy bar, you have to jump from one thing to the next.
And I've been in the industry forever, so that's the only job that I ever knew. Again, getting by, playing to my strengths. So I was sitting at this desk every day, and I remember just going insane. I remember I would look around and I would count how many times people around me went to the bathroom because I wanted to know what a normal amount of times to go to the bathroom was, because I needed to get up, I needed to move, I needed to just have like a change of scenery. And I'm not kidding, I would count, and I know the average person goes to the bathroom 2 times a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. I would go 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the afternoon just because I needed a change of scenery. And I'm like sitting here racking my brain. I remember I used to Google as I was sitting there on my phone, like, is it normal to hate your job? Because I couldn't, and it wasn't a bad job. It was a good job. I would cry in my car on the way home from work because I'm like, this is just unfucking bearable.
Solely because you just flat out couldn't concentrate
just
on
because sitting
work?
there felt fucking mind numbing, and I felt like I literally felt like I was going to die. It was horrible. So finally I'm like, okay, you know, maybe I should just look into this. And I did it without anybody knowing. I was living in Philly at the time, so I kind of went to a doctor that was a little bit far away, and I was strategic about it. And my initial appointment.
What do you mean by that? Like,
well, I just kind of didn't want anybody to know that I was doing this because I was embarrassed. I thought people were going to think that I was lying. I really, truly did.
We
and especially
should have talked about this last week.
Especially because I was 23. So to me, I'm like, I'm too old to be doing this. Like, I should have done this 15 years ago. So I just had an appointment with a counselor, and I basically just said, like, this is what I'm feeling. I feel like it might have some characteristics of ADD. Does this sound right to you? And she was so nice, this woman that I sat with, and she explained things to me in a really, like, truthful, honest, non-judgmental way. And some of the things she was asking me, I cried in the session because I was like, I can't believe these are characteristics of this disorder. I've had this my whole life. And like, I thought that I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't being aware of the world around me. Like, I didn't know that people with ADD or ADHD, which is actually what I have, that a characteristic is losing things a lot. Not liking to play board games, not liking to do puzzles, always having to be the person that watches a game once when it happens before actually starting, because listening to someone read directions for a game, I mean, you can attest to this. We've done this before.
Yeah, when we played, what the hell was it called on New Year's Eve? It was called Hot Seat.
Yeah.
And we played Hot Seat, and I was like, they're like, okay, pretty much they were like, who's the most sober one here? And I was like, I am. And I literally whispered to Bobby, I'm like, can I just watch this one round? And can you talk me through it as we go? And I was just like, I got you. But yeah, I had to read the rules, and I like read the rules, and I would say like there was like 8 of us, I think. I would say like 5 of them were like, okay, I got it. And then I guess that's a good process of elimination. The other 3 have ADHD. You know what I mean? They're like, whatever. So just stuff like that. Like, I didn't know that was, and I mean, there's just other, and even saying it right now, I feel embarrassed saying it. And I don't know why. I had this like shame about it that it's fake, or I'm leaning into something to try and make an excuse for being forgetful or something like that. I remember being in college and actually hitting my parents up too and being like, I think I have ADD or ADHD. Like, I'm not sure. And they're like, and I remember my dad, was, well, no, you're fine. And I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't know, man. I remember like when I was, for those of you who don't know, I did pledge fraternity. And when we had to do library hours, mandatory 6 to 9. And I remember being in library hours, like, and since I had to be there, if I didn't have any work that I needed to do, or even if I did have work to do, I remember catching myself. And it's funny because your like your I guess you would say symptoms, quote unquote, is like your
No,
mind.
they are symptoms.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
not,
like your
there's no
mind
quote.
races. You sprint from one thing to the next, and mine are the exact opposite, where I just full-fledged black out. Like I will sit there and I will be like, I don't know, maybe writing a paper or something like that, and I'll pause to like think about what I want to say, and then all of a sudden I just stare off into space, and I'm like looking at the clock, or I'm like looking at this book on a shelf, and then I just lose total control of my mind. And then I look down, I'm like, oh fuck, like 10 minutes just went past. Like, how fucking long was I just staring at something that was just, and the amount of people that walk by are probably like, what is wrong with this kid?
That is honestly, like, I'm listening to you say this, and that just sounds like such a foreign concept to me. I almost am jealous because if I could quiet my mind, I would give anything to quiet my mind. But my mind is going 1,000 places every minute.
Yeah, but like, it's not quiet though. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I do black out
Yeah.
in a sense where I just like kind of stare off, but your mind's still going. Like, my mind is still like, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, oh, wait, like right now I'm like looking at the ceiling tile and I see like there's like a little stain on the one ceiling tile or something like that. And it's like, if I wasn't doing this, if I wasn't recording right now and we were just sitting down here like reading a fucking book, my eyes would be right on that ceiling tile and I would just lose everything and just be like, oh shit. Like, no, I don't know. I think maybe 10 minutes is an exaggeration,
Right.
but I'm staring at it for like way longer than I should. And I'm like, oh God. And I remember telling my parents, they're like, you're fine. You're probably just distracted. You're pledging, you're in college, you're 19, you're full of, hormones and shit. And, you're thinking about the next thing as far as like when you can get the fuck out of here.
You're still full of hormones. Let's just clarify
Well,
that.
yeah. But like,
But yeah,
I was going to say young, dumb, and full of cum, but, whatever.
Oh, love that. It's great. Yeah. That's good. You're coming up with good one-liners today. Let me
You're
tell
welcome.
you.
You're welcome.
So I think that was kind of what I expected to be met with when I finally expressed this. But to have met someone that a lot of it was just talking in the beginning, but there was a series of questionnaires and things I had to fill out, and it was so easy for me to do. Like I flew through the worksheets, and I almost felt like, when you have a problem and sometimes you aren't sure just how bad it is, and you're like, am I making this up? Is this weird or is this real? And someone listens to you and hears you and says, you know what? No, this is real. Like, absolutely, you're right.
They're giving you like that affirmation.
Yeah, and that's what that felt like for me. It was like finally someone was like, all right, like, you're not a dumbass. And I got called flighty a lot in high school. I remember flighty. Like
FLIGHTY?
Yes. I remember I had a teacher that called me that in a conference. I had a coach call me that in front of the whole team. And it was
extremely unprofessional, but
and what I did,
but in their defense, because I've been a coach and I've definitely like, trying to connect with kids and you rag on them a little bit. So you're probably more just trying to find common ground. So in their defense, they might not actually know what's really going on, and not to.
No, they were calling me out. They were like, you need to stop being so flighty. I'm like, okay, sorry. Like I'm in 8th grade. Like, what do you?
I'll do better.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then there's just like a couple other things I can think of when I was a kid. I remember I was really, really smart. I'm still smart, but I was a straight A student growing up, right? So this was kind of what threw me about the whole thing, because I was really smart and I used to get straight A's, and, I was involved in everything and always doing my best and whatever. And I think that's kind of what threw me off, because I'm like, well, if I had ADD or ADHD, like I'd be getting bad grades, like I'd be getting in trouble. And the woman that I was speaking to about this, when I finally went to go see someone, she said to me, if you are very intelligent as a child, you can usually make it until about 8th grade. And then that's when, you start switching classes and things start getting a little bit harder.
Start falling apart a little bit.
Right. And that's when your grades will start slipping. And as soon as she said that, I started bawling my eyes out, because that is exactly what happened to me. I got straight A's my whole entire life. 9th grade, I got my first C. Then I got my first D. 11th grade, I got my first F. And I could not get it together. I just couldn't. It was, and my parents were like, what's wrong? Are you on drugs? Like, what's happening? I'm like, no, I can't explain what's happening in my brain, but I just can't get the work done. I can't pay attention in class. It was torture, honestly.
It's actually funny you say that too, because now that I think about it, like I was always like an AB student, like, for the majority of my career. And then it was 10th grade, I think or ninth grade, I got like my first C on a report card. I remember my heart dropping, being like, fuck, my dad is going to kill me. Because let's also keep in mind, like, eventually, more than likely, I'm going to have my dad on the show at one time, because when, everyone like brags about their dad, like being the best. Mm-hmm. When I say my dad is the smartest person I've ever met on the planet,
he really is.
He is literally the smartest person I've ever met.
Very intelligent
I've
man.
never heard him say, I don't know. Whether it's like about like biochemical engineering or like why my girlfriend's mad at me, he has an answer for it all. And it's like, I don't get it. So, I've actually talked about him on the show before, but I'm like, my dad was valedictorian of his high school, graduated, I believe, from Drexel, with a 4.0 in engineering. And I'm like, dude, I can't get a C. Like, this guy's a genius. So I then had my first C, I think it was like ninth grade. And then I remember 11th grade, every marking period that we had, I had at least 2 C's on my report card.
Well, and that is somewhat common. I mean, school gets harder, right?
Well, it gets harder. Well, no. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to make myself like discredit myself, but I think I had 4 C's every single marking period. I said at least 2 just to buy myself a little bit of room there, but I think I had 4 C's. So that means I got like 4 C's, an A and a B, and that was it. And my A and B were probably in like gym class. And it's funny because they say that female brains develop faster than male brains. So I wonder if the statistic changes that this therapist said, saying like, hey, usually you make it to about 8th grade, 9th grade or whatever, but because you're a female, it may have delayed me, where mine didn't really hit until like 11th, 12th grade, and in college a little bit as well too, because I didn't do very well in the beginning of college, but I was also away from home and partying way too much.
Bloomsburg, baby.
Yeah. Once I transferred to Temple, I made Dean's List my last semester at Bloomsburg, and then I transferred to Temple and graduated with a 3.63 GPA, which is like, it's pretty good, I guess, right?
Well, my parents, I graduated with a 3.63 too.
Squat up, dude.
Yes, smart people. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Smart persons in the house. Okay, so basically my parents kind of, when I got into college, I had that broken up schedule, which honestly was a godsend to me. That is what brought me back to getting good grades again. Not having to sit there for 4 or 5 hours at a time and just pay attention and ask questions and be quiet and sit still. College, I feel like, was the most...
Have to ask you to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, like college was just so liberating for me. And then I got good grades again. And that kind of like reaffirmed my parents that like, oh, you were just fucking up. You weren't paying attention. You weren't doing the work. I'm like, okay, like here we are again. It's got to be
getting downplayed.
Me. Yeah, it's got to be me. So I think finally having addressed it, and when I tried out a couple different medications at first, which also I thought was really cool that my therapist was willing to work with me and to find the right thing for me. And that was helpful a lot too. And then when I finally got the dosage and everything figured out, I feel like my life is so much different now. It's so different. Yeah,
and I actually want to dissect the medication, the medication side of things, or would it be medical, whatever. So you are currently medicated,
yes,
correct, for it? Okay. Now, the only thing that I understand, like the ADD and ADHD can come about in children and stuff like that. I totally understand. The only thing I don't know if I totally agree with, which again, I don't know. I don't know the answer, and I don't know the science behind it. I don't study the human brain like some of our other people who have been on the show, like last week. Shout out Liv. But one thing I do struggle with is medicating children for it. I think in some instances it makes sense, and I get it, and that's fine. But I think like as a whole, our society is very quick to medicate, and there's just something about an adolescent changing the chemical balance in their brain in an adolescent for someone who has not been fully developed yet, and it doesn't really sit with me. But again, I don't know if they're, because I guess, and to be honest, I don't think anybody really knows, because we're really just kind of figuring all this shit out.
Honestly,
we don't know what the effects are 20 years from now, because
Right.
we haven't really been able to study the effects of it from now. You need a large plot of data in order to know what really happens when you medicate a child who is 12. You know what I
I
mean?
think honestly, and I can say this speaking from my own experience and having a couple of friends whose children are medicated. I think for me, when I began the journey, as we'll call it, I had a great therapist, and then he actually retired a year after I had met him, and he was the one who was prescribing my medication, and I got a new one, kind of through the same practice. It was a new guy to the practice, and he didn't. My theory is that he probably was getting a kickback from certain companies, and he told me he would no longer prescribe me the medication that I had already been on for a year and some change at that point. His exact words to me were, "They don't prescribe that anymore." And I didn't have the balls to ask, "Well, who's they? Like, what are you talking about?" Now that I'm older, I can say without a doubt, I'm almost sure that he was probably getting a kickback for prescribing certain medications.
You don't even want to get me on a tangent on the medical industry and how much of a fucking like medical industry, big pharma, and insurance companies.
Oh yeah, I mean we all could, but I
It is.
think so. Basically, he messed with my meds, and he had me on 3 different medications throughout that time, which we had already kind of experimented with my first time around with my therapist before that. And I mean, the idea that I was fucking with medications so much, like that still makes me sick to my stomach. That I was getting, he would send me with 3 different prescriptions for 3 different kinds of medication, all for the same thing that I need. Like, what if I had a problem? Like, what if I was an addict and I now had access to 90 pills for one cause? Like, fortunately, I was there for the right reasons and whatever, but I remember at one point I came to him and one of the medications was making me super depressed. Like, at the end of the day, I would cry or I would just like stare at a wall, like I was not well. And I had brought this to his attention, and I said, the other medicine I was on was working fine for me. Why is there a reason I can't go back on that? And he totally deterred the question and was like, "Well, I can write you a script for an antidepressant if you want." I'm like,
No.
I mean,
I
that's
don't
not.
want
Why would
more.
I be on 2 when I was on 1 that worked fine before? So
Yeah.
basically, fortunately I found a new doctor, and that was a whole other process finding someone new. But
Yeah.
my point to all that is, I think a lot of what Liv said last week. Every single psychiatrist is different. Every single person in that field is different and has a different view on things and has a different, way of treating different things. And
I think she used the word approach.
yeah,
Different
so
approach.
I think that with children, if you have the right therapist, and I'm sorry, actually psychiatrists are those who can prescribe. So if you have the right psychiatrist and they are willing to work with you and they'll listen and they're there really to figure out what's going on and what's best for you as a child, I think in that scenario, medication would work. And I think in a lot of kids really need it, honestly. But I think there's, and I really don't want to go bashing the medical field because I have so much respect for all of them, but there are so many doctors out there that just want to write a script and send you on your way because
Yeah.
I've experienced it firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Churn and burn. See ya.
And it sucks. It's
Get my
bullshit.
paycheck and I'm out. You know
It really is. And it breaks my heart for those kids because I dealt with it as an adult, and I cried in the office to the secretary. I'm like, why is he giving me so many different things? Why can't I just have what I had before? And I was 24 and I was crying to like,
Let alone a fucking 12-year-old.
right.
You know what
and
I mean?
and the parents want to do what's best, and we trust the doctors, right? Like, they've gone to school, they're in this field because they want to be and they want to help, but I don't think that all of them necessarily are doing all the right work for the right reasons.
Yeah. And here's the other thing too is, again, most parents nowadays are ignorant to what this is.
Mm-hmm.
So like if a doctor's like, "Oh, we need to prescribe your kid this," they're like, "Well, we got to listen to the doctor." And most parents are not going to question it because they just don't know.
Not most, I mean some, right?
Yeah.
And Bobby and I are speaking from observation, right? Neither of us have kids, so we don't really know.
Yeah, but I mean, like, let's be honest. If I didn't start this, if we didn't start this podcast and run with this and, whatnot, and like kind of like talk about these things, I would kind of stay, on the other side of things,
Right.
and just have to trust the other person. I would never have dove into this topic with anybody else before, and thought about this. And I probably I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't listen to the doctor. But nowadays, I probably am gonna be like,
Well, I think it's important to talk about it. I think that was what I learned about all of it. It's important to talk to someone in depth about what you're feeling and what you're going through before you rush to medication,
yeah,
and just exploring what that is. And there was actually a point too recently over the last year and a half, because I also struggle with depression personally. And this time last year, I was actually really, really down, like deeper than I've ever been in depression in my entire life. I can say that without a doubt. And I brought this information to my psychiatrist, who I see for my ADHD. And he said to me, he's like, well, you know what? Sometimes we misdiagnose ADHD for bipolar disorder. So maybe that's actually what you're struggling with, and you don't have ADHD. Like, let's look into that. And we did. And it turned out that I was actually just super depressed. But still, like, the fact that he was willing to even like talk about that and look at, like, we've been treating you for one thing for the last, I don't know, 7 years. Maybe it's something different. Let's look at that. Like, that's why I like him so much, because he was willing to talk about things and say, like, maybe I fucked up. Like, maybe this is not what you actually are battling. And I, like, so many people just would not do that. And I think that's, oh, it just makes me so mad. I'm getting pissed over here.
Yeah, I guess she's actually turning red right now. The steam is blowing out the headphones right now. Well, it's interesting too, because I do know that when you go on medication for any type of anxiety or antidepressants or anything like that, you are actually on a 2-week watch whenever you are put on. Like, if you just start it or if you change your medication.
What do you mean a 2-week watch?
You're supposed to be put on a 2-week watch, like, by your whoever prescribed it to you, because obviously you see the commercials all the time, like, here's an antidepressant drug, like, blah blah, side effects, more depression,
right.
You know what I mean? So, basically they say, hey, try these out, and they kind of keep tabs on you over the 2 weeks, because that's really where you're going to find out if this medication, this dosage, or whatever this kind is going to make you feel worse or make you feel better or stay stagnant. And
right. And that's what they did for my medication too, when I was exploring all that as well. But yeah, I think it's I guess the moral of my story for all this is, if you have friends that have ADHD, if you have ADD, like, try and cut them a break. It's exhausting.
It's a lot.
I found I love to run. I love to run. And I someone actually asked me one time, like, why do you like running? Like, what do you think about when you run? And
that's your escape.
Well, I thought about it, and I'm like, when I run, I like to run outside. So I'll run a route, and, like, it's just me and my head. That's all I have, is me and my thoughts. And it feels like the only time when I can just kind of sit there, be forced to address my thoughts, and I can kind of lay them out. I can see it in my head what I'm trying to say, but it's hard for me to explain. They feel linear. They feel like they're in categories, and they feel like they're lined up, and I can explore thought number 1, think it through, move on to thought number 2. Whereas, like, in my regular life, every day,
here's thought number 1, here's thought number 17, here's thought 34.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you and I were talking earlier about the difference between ADD and ADHD, and I think I do want to touch on that. And before we started this, we did do a little bit of Googling on this behalf, but basically ADD and ADHD are interchangeable, right? They have a lot of the same characteristics. The difference really is the H, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and this is what I suffer from. This is what I live with and I deal with. But that basically
I like that rephrasing.
That basically means that instead of getting distracted, like, by things that come about and just kind of shifting my focus here and there, I quite literally sprint from thought to thought. It is not. It's exhausting, honestly. It's really exhausting.
Best way to describe it.
And some of the symptoms that we came up with, and this sounds so stupid. I feel like I still get, like, emotional reading these, because it feels like, okay, like, I'm not crazy, right? This is something that I actually deal with every day. So just to read off some of the symptoms from the Mayo Clinic. Behavioral symptoms are aggression, excitability, fidgeting, hyperactivity, impulsivity, irritability, lack of restraint. Cognitive, which I think this is the one that really hits home for me, absent-mindedness, difficulty focusing, forgetfulness, problem paying attention, short attention span. Mood, anger, anxiety, boredom, excitement, or mood swings. Like just
I like how it's like up, down, up, down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
And that's
boredom, excitement. You know what I mean?
that's quite literally how I feel every day of my life. But I mean, being medicated helps. I like to say when I take the medication, I feel like I don't change. I feel like the world changes, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't feel like I'm different. It feels like everything else kind of just feels different around me. Not me personally, if that makes sense.
It doesn't, but I support you on it. You know what I mean?
I feel like it's almost like putting on glasses, right? Like when,
3D glasses.
Well, no, it's like putting on glasses. Like things just are kind of blurry.
I don't have glasses, so I don't know.
Things are kind of blurry without them, and then you put the glasses on, and it's like, okay, I can see. Like that's kind of like what it feels like, I guess, maybe.
That's all right. I can appreciate that. I mean, I don't know. I've only been really medicated one time for just a little bit of depression here, and I still don't even think. I think it was a placebo, to be honest. Just kind of like.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was in college. After some events transpired, which eventually one day I'm sure will come out and I'll talk about. But
Stay tuned. This is a juicy story.
Yeah, it's a good one. It'll be probably a 15-minute monologue by me, which will be great. But yeah, so I remember, it was after that, and so I still do think it was a sugar pill, just because it was more like, okay, you kind of just had something happen to you, whatnot. You just need to work through it, and this might kind of trick your brain into like, oh, you're feeling better. So, I mean, I don't know. I could be totally fucking wrong.
I don't know if they do that. I don't know if that's...
I think you'd be surprised. I don't know.
Somebody weigh in. We need to phone a friend. We need to call Liv and ask.
Yeah, well, I don't wear a white lab coat, so I guess I can't really, attest to that. But yeah, so stemming off of that, about that whole topic. One, thank you, Kaity, for opening up a little bit and sharing a little bit about what it's like to live with, to live with. To live with something like this.
And I do hope at one point, it's common for adults to get off of medication as you get older, because you learn coping strategies and you learn how to work through it. And I am hoping at some point to not have to be medicated, because obviously if you don't have to put medicine in your body, why would you? So
that's ideal.
So that is my goal at some point in my life, to not have to be medicated forever. But if I am medicated forever, then I am. I've kind of, people ask me that a lot. Like, do you think you're going to be on this for the rest of your life? I'm like, again, the shame in me 4 years ago was like, oh no, like, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. But the older I get, the more I'm like,
if that's the way it is, and that's the way it is.
I think I might need this. And you know what? Like, yes. I'm in disagreement. Yes, I'm going to be medicated probably forever.
Yeah.
And if that's the way my life turns out, then it is what it is. I'm going to try not to, but if that's where it goes,
That's where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the reason why we really wanted to dive into that is because a lot of feedback. We want to learn a little bit more about you and stuff. So thank you for opening up about that. The other set of feedback that we got as this platform starts to grow and grow and grow is, the number one question is, what is this show about? And that's like a really loaded question, because I feel like it's hard to like pinpoint one thing.
Yeah.
And we kind of just wanted to address that now too. So I know one of my biggest goals, I guess you could say, for this platform is really to just shed light on things that are looked at as irregular, but it's actually extremely regular.
Yeah, it's regular people that are dealing with them every single day.
Exactly. So like I want to, like this ADHD, anxiety, depression, mental health. I mean, even just like normal things. Like I think the episode with Zach was awesome. Like talking about like what it's like to be a coach. Like not everybody's coached sport. Mm-hmm. Not everyone knows what that's like. Not everybody knows what it's like to deal with parents. And although it seems pretty regular, it is irregular though. And like kind of like that transition back into forth of the irregularities. I screwed that one up.
Irregularities.
There we go.
Help
us. But the regular things in life, just kind of transitioning back between that, like, some people who think something is so regular is actually so irregular, and then some people who think something is something that is so irregular is so regular.
Oh my gosh, we're down such a rabbit hole right now.
Yeah, exactly. But that's fine. You know what I mean? Fuck it. It's our show. We can do what we want. But, it's That's one of my main goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having people on, especially I'd like to shed light on issues that maybe are harder to talk about sometimes, or people might think that they understand, but hearing it from a regular person that you pass on the street every day, I think kind of gives it a more relevant aspect than maybe having just read about it in a book or reading someone's Facebook post about it or something like that.
A meme that goes by, or spoken from someone who's a fucking millionaire or something like that, which, not saying that their opinion isn't as valuable, but it just doesn't resonate home as much as someone who, like you said, you pass by on the street every day and you might not know that they deal with this or they deal with that. And I think, oddly enough, I'm going to use the South Park reference where, like, to say, like, hey, I understand that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And it was actually, I don't know do you watch South Park at all?
No.
Okay, so it was the episode
I don't have cable, low-key.
Oh, yeah.
Another fun fact about me.
But yeah, it was the episode that Stan's dad said, it goes on Jeopardy and says the N-word. And then Stan spends the whole episode trying to prove to Token, the only black kid in the school, that he's like, oh, I'm sorry, my dad's not racist, or like he didn't mean it, and blah, blah. And Token, the whole episode is just like, dude, stop. Like, just stop. And then finally, at the end, there's always like a big, like, revealing, lesson or whatnot. And at the very, very end, Stan goes to Token. He literally goes, Token, I understand. I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And like, that's why I love South Park, is the levels of comedy there. You're like, wow, that really hits home. And I think that's also important to address on this platform too, that like, there are things that we are going to talk about that I flat out understand that I have no clue.
And I think why not talk about it? Those are the things that we want to talk about. I want to have people on here that are going to teach me things that I don't know.
Shout out to Scott. If a conversation is a difficult conversation, it's probably one worth having.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
He has a shirt that says exactly that, and I want to buy it off of him. So, and then on top of that too, I think another big aspect of this is that, like, regular people have success stories. There are, and there's so much shit out there. I mean, in recent events, there's just so much shit out there. Everything's negative. You can't even watch the news for 5 minutes without just being like, oh my God, I feel terrible. Mm-hmm. That, like, I do want to shed light on the fact that, like, there are really good stories that, like, normal people, make it out of. You know what I mean? Like, that they do have some hardships, but here we are. You know what I mean? Like, Mike O'Malley lived under a fucking bridge, and here he is, super successful, married, great group of friends,
but
great
you would
wife.
Never know that about him having met him.
Never.
And that's, I think, kind of what we're trying to pinpoint here, is that regular people have lots of irregular stories, and we want to talk about them. We want to normalize them. We want to explore them, and also, tell some jokes and, exploit ourselves a little bit in the process too.
Kind of blow our own spots up, which is fine, because
we're just here for you guys. If we need to self-deprecate to make you guys laugh, trust me, we will.
We're like a dartboard. We're just gonna sit there and you can just throw darts at us. That's fine. I make it easy. I'm a big target. So, on that note, we're going to wrap today's episode up. Thank you again for listening on another Thursday. Make sure you follow my personal page at yobob, EYOOO_BOB. And also make sure you join the Facebook group as well.
And of course, if you are following us on Instagram, you're probably very pleased. We've been posting quite a bit at Irregular Podcast. Follow us, like us. If you're interested in being on the show, we've actually had a lot of people reach out on that respect, and my response every time is, make me an offer I can't refuse. Tell me why I should have you on this podcast. Give me a good story. Also follow my personal page at Kaity_ANI. It's Kaity, KAITY_ANI.
And as you guys should already know, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and download on any platform we are on, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Whatever platform you guys use, make sure you're downloading the episodes. That really helps grow the platform in itself. On that note, we will talk to you guys and girls next Thursday. Love you.
Love you.